never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. Only shooting stars break the mold.
Welcome to another episode of the NRL Allstars podcast. Barnesy here, your host of the Allstars podcast, back for another team preview. We have had TLT drop, but only for 4 teams, so there is still time to squeeze in some team previews. And for this one, for the first time this season, we've got Brandon Savage from the SuperCoach experience. Savs, welcome aboard, mate.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. You're our quintessential Manly team preview guy for a few years. So
Maybe this year is the last year that I'm that guy. I'm a Bears supporter at heart.
No, we can't have a team jumper on the podcast. Come on. I'm sure you'll have a soft spot for Manly still, but I didn't even think about that. Next year, I'm going to have to add team preview for the Bears as well, so it's going to start to get tricky.
Yeah, I'll be the dual position player for that one then.
Perfect. I'll give you a DPP straight away. You don't even have to wait to be named for it. Look, you've obviously got the SuperCoach Experience podcast going strong as well, so everyone could go and jump on that one. And Mikey's an All-Stars regular now. I feel like he's mine as well now because I think he's about 50-50 anyway. So.
50-50. He's probably 90-10 on your podcast. So he's an All-Star at the moment.
He's been doing a great job, and Mike will be on for TLT next week, everyone. But for this one, Savs, we have your current team, Manly Warringah Sea Eagles, and I was a bit worried about this one because I thought I might upset you a lot, but I feel pretty good now that you can actually jump ship anyway. So anything I'm going to say about them is going to be fairly fleeting for you because you'll forget about it next year when you got your Bears jumper on. But I guess we've got to start talking about the roster first, and then we'll talk about how we think that they're going to go, which for me might be seen as a bit negative by some Sea Eagles fans, so I apologise in advance. But Gaines, Zach Docker-Clay and Jamal Fogarty and Kobe Hetherington are the 3 big ones. Blake Wilson, I think, is also pretty handy as well. So I actually think they recruited pretty decent because all of those are needs. Lachlan Croker retired, so Zach Docker-Clay gives you some semblance of cover in that number 9 spot. Obviously, Fogarty needed to replace DCE, who's hard to replace, but I mean, Fogarty was arguably one of the form 7s in the comp last year and led the team over at the Raiders to the minor premiership. Hetherington needed a middle forward so badly, but losses-wise, I say you needed a middle forward so badly. You didn't lose young Navali, but he did his ACL, so that's another middle forward out of the rotation. You also had Josh Alawai retire, and Matt Lodge got released, and Sipley has gone to Warrington. So even Jazz Tavanga was playing a lot of middle last year. There's a lot of middle forwards that have gone, along with like the likes of DCE. So really, I'm looking at the side going, well, that Navale injury really tipped the scales for me. I don't mind the Hetherington pickup, but that pack just looks so light on. And then as well as that, with the fact that Jake Trbojevic, as much as I'd like him to get through the season, has just had those repeated head knock issues. I look at that side and go, look, the spine's a bit weak because, there's a lot of pressure on Luke Brooks now. And with your recruitment, you haven't really replaced him with anyone else that can come in. And then you look at Turbo and go, well, Turbo's the only one with like big time class in that spine that you're going to rely on to win your games. And obviously he can be in and out of that side as well. I don't mind the back line too much, but to me, the forward pack is a real weakness for Manly. So I don't really think that they were able to fix that with their recruitment. And that's probably the part that I'm most worried about.
Yeah, I feel like they're 117 they can get by. They can definitely, with their top 17 players, they can definitely get by. The problem is once injuries start to hit, like in my predicted 17, I did have Caleb Navale at number 16, but that was leaving out Nathan Brown. And I think Nathan Brown will get a spot on the bench. Looking at their starting pack, it'll be Paseka, Trbojevic, Hetherington in the middle, and then off the bench, Takiaho, Nathan Brown and Bullymore. That's a pretty good starting side, and I think they can get by. The issue is once injuries start to hit and once fatigue starts to set in and these forwards start to get banged up, they're going to struggle. So I think for me, like I'm potentially looking at some of these players. I'm not so much worried about what their side looks like to start the season. I feel like they're a really hot and cold side, and I feel like they're going to be the type of side that starts hot, but is really going to take a massive fall towards the middle of the season when injuries start to hit. So the second trial against the Rabbitohs was pretty worrying. But at the same time, still missing $3 million in Jake, Tom, and Molly out of the sides. I'm optimistic, but I know things are going to fall very quickly as soon as injuries start to hit.
I feel like that we will see Joey Walsh reasonably quickly. I think after the first third of the season, at least.
Yeah, honestly, last year I got the shits with Luke Brooks because he's had so many opportunities and so many people have given these opportunities to him, and he just hasn't stood up. Like in the games where DCE wasn't there, I remember there was a game against the Rabbitohs in his first year at Manly where DCE was in for Origin. I think it was like a 13-12 loss to the Rabbitohs, and Rabbitohs were missing all their Origin players too. He just didn't control the game, and it was such a scrappy game, and that's the perfect situation where a senior player like him should step up. I just feel like he's had his moments, he's had his chance, and in a side like this with Jamal Fogarty as the 7, you're going to need a lot from him. I just don't think he's capable. I think he's got the attributes to do it, but I don't think he has the mental capacity to do it, really.
Yeah, it's a funny one because I think a couple of things with Luke Brooks strike me straight away. One is that he's got to... I think that if he's a complementary player in a really good side, and I don't mean to throw Manly under the bus, but I just don't think that they're like a top 6 side at all. I think that he's a lot better, and I think that he can play that role a lot more. And I think that's what he's needed his whole career, to be honest. At the Tigers, they struggled the whole time he was there. Manly didn't make the 8 last year either. And I also think that probably a lot of us, including me, I thought playing behind DCE as second fiddle and obviously Turbo, it would help him immensely, and I thought he was in for a good year. The problem was that DCE's form dropped down, and it's fair enough for DCE's for his form to drop down because he's old, and that happens to everybody, even the best players that have ever played. And the fact of the matter is he had all that off-season turmoil and arguments with head office as well. So I think that all of a sudden that didn't come to fruition, and all of a sudden he had to be a better player than just a third-string complementary player in the spine. The other thing too with him is that I don't think that's going to change this year too much, but what could happen, and I don't think it will, but if Jamal Fogarty can be the player that he was for Canberra last year, maybe he'll be better than what DCE was for Manly last year, which will help Brooks. But I also saw some stories where Brooks had said in interviews that he's happy to move if it's better for the team. Obviously, you're pretty light on at hooker. Having Brooks as a 9, which I think the Tigers did really, really well a number of years ago, and I thought he looked pretty good there. That could be an option as well.
I really love that as an option, to be honest. I think just at number 6, like he's got a great running game, he's got a great kicking game, but he just kind of gets caught up on when to use it. And I think just going to 9 simplifies his role. Just run when the marker's not there, run when you see open space, pass it off the deck, and if you see space, then you've got a good enough kicking game. We trust you to kick the ball when you see fitting. I think it'll simplify his role heaps. And they need someone at 9. They've got Joey Walsh breathing down his neck. So, yeah, I hope they go in that direction this season. I'm skeptical that they will, but yeah, I think that's the direction I'd be going in for sure.
Just going back to the forwards as well. So I agree all those guys individually are decent role players. My problem is that you've got 5 or 6 of them, and they're all older guys mostly as well. So they're all guys well into their 30s. Gerbo is basically a 50-year-old rugby league player in a 30-year-old's body. So I just think that they're all too old, and they're all very one-dimensional role players. Like I think any side, even top 8 sides, any top 8 side would be happy to have any one of those guys coming off their bench as a middle. But when you're using like 4 of them in your rotation, I think it's a huge issue. So I also question the output. Like, I'm a massive Takiaho fan. I think he's fantastic, but it's not Takiaho from 8 years ago. Same with Nathan Brown. I was actually probably Nathan Brown's number 1 fan for years, but again, it's not Nathan Brown 8 years ago either. It's a very big difference in what they can produce. And I actually think that Jamal Fogarty will struggle this year because he had the benefit of playing behind this Raiders forward pack that has always been so dominant and so good. And I don't think he even understands the challenge that's ahead of him, because the drop-off in forward pack quality between the Raiders and the Seagulls is immense. And when you're halfback, the best thing that you want in a side is for your forward pack to get you on the front foot, to put the defence on the back foot, and to give you space. He's going to get the opposite of that. So I'm actually really interested in how Fogarty's going to go this year. How are you sort of seeing his impact?
Yeah, I'm optimistic. Obviously, I agree with 100% with what you're saying. I think there's a world where he does struggle, but I think like Anthony Seibold, a lot of people aren't a fan of him. I'm actually a massive fan of him. I think he's like so good, such a good footy brain. He probably hasn't executed things like he should have in the past. So yeah, I'm a bit worried that he doesn't do it again this season. I think his job is under pressure, but looking at the side, that the forward pack isn't going to compete with your Penriths, your Broncos, your Roosters. So I feel like they should know what is in front of them and play to their strengths. I feel like they're in the off season. I would have hoped that they've all become as fit as they can be, and they can just outlast every single team and play off the front foot in attacking style footy like they have in the past. So swinging the ball around, not really relying on their forwards, just having the forwards there to defend. And you've got Paseka, who can get you a bit of go forward, Ethan Bullimore off the bench, Nathan Brown. You're going to need all these guys to have pretty much career years to get you on the front foot. But I'm optimistic they play a style of footy that doesn't require these forwards to be heavily relied on for their go forward. I'm hoping guys like Lehigh, Ruben Garrick, Cooler, Saab, Tommy, just going to be meter eaters out the back and doing all the tough stuff in the first three, and then the forwards just doing all the defending for them. So I'm optimistic they play that sort of style of footy. Whether it happens or not is still a lot to be begged for, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they come out. I'm optimistic that they definitely come out strong, but I'm definitely, I know that there's going to be a massive fall off eventually.
Yeah, it's one of those things for me where I actually think that when coaches are under pressure, the clubs that manage it best actually don't say they're under pressure, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's a kiss of death. They've got the support of the board and everything." Like, there's a very clear reason why that's done, and it's because if your coach is fighting for his job, it's not the best thing for your team. It is the best thing when a player is. You have players in contract years, and if you tell them, look, you got to step up the next few months or you're out, that's great motivation for a player, and you see some fantastic performances. There's a very famous Darren Lockyer point, I think it was 2005, where Lockyer very quietly got told that your Origin career is going to be over if you lose another series to this Andrew Johns, Brad Fittler-led New South Wales team, and he stepped up and kept his job. That sort of thing is great for players. For coaches, terrible, because when you got a coach fighting for his job, he is going to coach for his job, and that is not playing young players, not changing style too much, not taking risks, and it's almost a kiss of death once a lot of coaches start doing that. And most of the time when it's a coach under pressure, it's because they're not performing well. They actually perform worse as a coach because they're not doing the things that they really should if they were free-flowing and carefree as such. So I actually really worry for Seibold. He have said multiple times one of Seibold or Todd Payten will be fired this year. They might make it to the end of the season, but this season will be the last of one of them, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's both of them. So that all really positively goes into my segue of where I think the Manly Seagulls will finish. Look, I think their range is 11 to 17. And I say that because I don't think that they'll make the 8. I don't think they have any chance. I think they do have a chance to be right in that mix, and maybe they end up, falling back to 11 once injuries and things hit and whatever. But I do actually think, there's a real chance that they could be really fighting down the bottom. And I don't say that, Savs, because I think that they're terrible. But I've said every podcast, and I'm going to say it again for the first time, listeners especially, the NRL is the tightest it has ever been. A decent team will finish with the spoon. Decent teams will be in the top 4. And sometimes, the team that's like 2 or 4 points out from the spoon could have very well made the 8 if they had the right run, and injuries play a big factor. So 11 to 17, that's my range. Do you think I'm being too harsh?
I don't think you are. I think I look at every team in the preseason and look at their depth is my biggest thing. The depth and who comes in key roles. And Manly's depth, they just don't have any. So I think it's very reasonable. I'm obviously optimistic that things go nicely. So I'm hoping for a bit higher. But like, to be honest, my expectations are not high this year. I think they'll be the Manly of the years past, where they'll have games where they blow teams out of the water. But I just know it's not going to last the whole season. I think the main thing here is it's with Jamal Fogarty coming in, it's Tom Trebojevich's team, and he is such a challenge. He's probably like he's one of the better fullbacks in the competition when he is fully fit. He hasn't been that in a couple of years. Yes, he's played more games than he ever has in the last 2 or 3 years, but he's still
He's been lame in a lot of those games,
Yeah.
though, and that's the thing that the numbers don't show.
Yeah, exactly. Like the argument for him being on the field more, he's actually like on the field for half the time he is on the field. He looks ginger. So I'm optimistic on him in particular this year, just because he looks so fit in the preseason. He'd be given the captaincy, so it'll be a very Tom Trbojevic style footy. We'll be playing Tommy footy this year, so that's what I'm falling back on. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, we do need to talk about the Supercoach players of interest. I'll finish off on Manly by saying, though, I like a couple of things that they've done for their future. I am a big Walsh believer. I think Walsh will be their half for a long time, provided he stays around. And I also was very surprised that Kohler signed for 5 years on his contract extension. That's a great signing. I really like him. I think he's got the potential to be a really good centre. The problem, though, is the double-fisted compliment here. It's great getting those backs in for the future, and I think that's a bright future for that back line potentially, because there's some other young guys too, like even Falalo and some other guys coming through. But again, you just don't have any forwards, and even the young forwards that you did have coming through, they've either done an ACL in like Navale, who we're excited to see, or they've actually left the club. Like when I watched Dean Madison at times, I didn't mind him in the early years and stuff, and he kind of never really got a go. And I don't know whether he would have been any good or not, but I don't know what it is with the Manly young forwards, but they just don't seem to be coming through. And you're going to get to a point now where it's like, all right, we've got 6 forwards retiring. Who do we replace them with? And it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, exactly. They've got a couple coming through at the moment. Like, I think there was this, what's his name? I'm just scrolling. Paul Bryan looked pretty good in the trial in the first one, and they had another one that looked pretty good in the first trial. But
is that Lafayette?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But you got Navale as well, so he'll be back in the coming years. They got Zaydas coming through at hooker, the guy with his schlong out in the Fox Sports post. But there's been a lot of good things come out of Manly this year. Like Kieran Foran coming in, assistant coach straight away. Jason King coming in and CEO of the club now. Like, a lot of good things are happening. But it doesn't feel like they're building for anything this year. It feels like they're really building trying to start building for the future, and they're going to take a few years of lower place finishes on the ladder because of it. But I think that's what they're willing to take. And this year will be more so, Seabold, are you our guy or are you not? Like, are you putting things in place that are going to help us in the future, or are you just like, what are you to our club? I think that's what this year is going to be for the Manly Sea Eagles.
So, players of interest for Supercoach. We're going to go down the guns first, and the first one is obviously going to be Tom Trbojevic, who we've mentioned a lot already. He comes in at 692,200. 71-point average, reasonably expensive, and I'm going to say almost awkwardly priced, because he's close enough to some guys like a Drinkwater within 100k, where you could go to someone like him who could be more reliable to start the season. And then you've also got guys like Callum Ponga, who are now named round 1, who are going to goal kick now, as we see, and he's almost 100k less. And then you've all got all the other mid options and everyone else. So he's dropped off from 82 and 89 averages the 2 years before 2025 to a 71. And sometimes with Tommy, you can look at it and go, well, let's take out this game where he played 8 minutes and stuff and whatever. And, he was actually, there isn't really any games where he was low minutes. So, you have a look at it and go, wow, he's 41 base power, which is solid but not phenomenal. It's been better before. He had the least amount of games that he's gone 60 plus. 44% of the time, Tom went 60 plus. And his strike rate for tries was the worst of his career. In 18 games, he went for 6 tries. So you look at all that and just go, wow, it's like there's a lot of career lows there. And I guess glass half full guys would go, look, he's going to be better than that. He's going to score 8, 9, 10 tries this year. He's going to get his base power up a few points. We're going to at least get 6, 7 points of value and it works out well. But the glass half empty guys, and I'm kind of in the middle, but we'll be like, well, this could be Tommy's, decline, and he might be a really good fullback and still a star, but not quite the Tommy that we've had before. So you said that you're pretty optimistic on him, Savs, for SuperCoach. Have you got him in your side at the moment?
I do. There are some negatives though. Round 25 against the Dolphins, he scored 180. Like without that, he's a 65 average last year instead of a 71. So the numbers still aren't as good as, but then you can even that out with he scored 24 in 40 minutes against Parramatta. So you can potentially even that out. Like we know he has these big 100+ scores. So that's what you're getting Tommy for. I just like the fact that he's been given the captaincy. So I think they're definitely going to revolve their play style around him. Whereas I found last year it was very frustrating watching Manly play because it seemed like at times it sounded like felt like most of the time they refused to give the ball to him because that they've relied on him so much in the past, and I think they just tried to be smarter with how they went about their attacking style, not really having to rely on him so much, but they nearly have to this year with Jamal Fogarty coming to the club, and Jamal Fogarty is the perfect halfback to have Tommy out the back playing Tommy ball. We saw KO Weeks, how good he was last year. So I'm optimistic he sees a lot more ball and gets it when he wants it this year. The captaincy is like a massive factor for mine. The fact that he was given the captaincy over Jake, obviously the concussions and stuff, you're probably not going to risk it with Jake. He's not going to play 80 minutes. So it's a smart decision. And he looks fit. Like it's strange because he's a skinny guy. He's like, I don't know how you can tell he looks fit, but he just looks fit. He looks fit. He looks happy. And I'm just banking on the fact that he averages 90.8 against the Raiders, who has him round 1. He's playing the Knights in round 2, and he doesn't leave Four Pines. He's got to buy in round 3. So pretty much if he doesn't perform in those first 2, for me, I'll be going to one of the Lowell fullbacks in Kalen Ponga or Saul Longo. If Trey Fuller's available, potentially him. I'll be looking at that if he doesn't work out in the first 2. But if he's flying in the first 2, he's only 8% owned or something like that. 0.7% owned, only owned by 8,700 people. So yeah, it'll be worth it if it pays off. If it doesn't, I can pivot and it might hurt me, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. But that being said, in the past, I've been way too optimistic about Tommy, and it's probably been my undoing. I think I've always been mindful of being adaptable to SuperCoach trends and not being too caught up in what happened many years ago. And this could be one of them cases where I'm relying on what he's done in the past rather than what I see in front of me right now.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about the draw. We forgot about it, but we should have. First three games are at Four Pines, which is really beneficial for Manly. The thing that isn't beneficial, and what I really don't like, is that they got that round 3 bye. Now, ordinarily, other positions I don't mind as much, particularly in the forwards somewhere. It doesn't matter that there's a round 3 bye. I really want to get off to good starts when I'm starting a SuperCoach season, and I want to be playing 3 fullbacks every week. I don't want to have to sit someone in round 3, and you're going to have to do that with Tommy. I don't mind your strategy. I think it's a very viable one to have a look at him, and if it doesn't work, you can just get rid of him, and that's easy. I'm going to go the other way, though, and say the opposite strategy I like as well, because it is Canberra first up, which even though he plays well against, they're a decent team, obviously, and, Newcastle, it's a good matchup, but that buys there. I'm going to go one further and say it's going to be a really easy trade down to him if you have a Tedesco that doesn't fire, a Drinkwater that doesn't fire, or things like that happen. I feel like that you can do that in round 4 or even 5, because the other thing with their draw is that they got the Roosters in round 4, and then it opens up to a fair bit of point scoring, which I really like, and they do play that round 12 big bye round. So after the Roosters in round 4, they got the Dolphins, there's points in that, Dragons, Cowboys, it's a really good 2-week period there, although it's 3 weeks away. They got Parramatta, then they are away to Penrith, at home to Brisbane, and then they've got this dream run of the Tigers, Gold Coast at home in round 12, which if Tommy's playing that, he's a must just about for that big bye round. And then the Sharks and then South Sydney before they've got their first bye in round 15. So the draw in this middle middle third portion of the season is actually really quite nice. So I think that you can probably afford, even if you like him, but you're just not 100% sold, because there is so many other good options. And you talk ownership, like Tedesco's only like 12% owned as well. You can go down to him at the right time and probably hit him really, really opportunistically, where you can still get that low ownership and alleviate some of the risk by having a look the first few weeks and not hitting that buy.
Yeah, 100%. To be honest, I actually think he probably gets in the Origin squad just based on the 6-man benches. I think he's probably prime candidate for that number 18 jersey.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I definitely think one of those will be a half. Like, you could see a Jerome Luai or something in one of those jerseys, or Matt Burton. But yeah, there'll be a half and a back, you would think. And Turbo is a prime candidate, so it's a good point. Look, I think we both agree that he's a decent option. It's probably unfortunate for him. I would have considered him more if they didn't have the buy and there wasn't as many options. And I've said on some of the other podcasts, like we've had years where you wouldn't even entertain mid-range fullbacks. You just go, look, it's not worth it, or cheapy fullbacks. But, there's proven guys in Kinney and Farlongo that are going to be able to score very good gun points, and also they're cheap. So you can't let all of these guys go. You've got to get at least one, if not two. So it's just one of those years, isn't it, Savs, where the fullback spot is just so loaded with elite talent and also cheaper guys.
100%, yeah.
So next guy on the list is Ruben Garrick, 664,000. Now, he has been one of the more consistent players in SuperCoach. He went 68 points a game last season, but if you account for his injury game where he got knocked out, it was actually 70. And that means it's 4 years in a row, 71, 71, 70, and 70 if you count that injury game out. It's remarkable, that 70 to 71 range that Ruben just keeps hitting in. So if you want consistency and to get what you pay for when you're paying a lot of money, then Ruben has always been that type of guy. I guess when we're having a look at it, 40 base power is decent, but it's really that 10 points per game he's netting overall in his average from goals that is the most crucial. If he's not getting the goal kicking, and I haven't actually seen, so I'm going to rely on this with you, that Fogarty's not going to get the goal kicking off him and Ruben's going to have it. But if he does lose it for some reason, then all of a sudden, his 70 goes down to being a 60 player. And there's also a fair bit of risk now with his concussions that he's had recently as well, which seem to be popping up a little bit more. So, I mean, I have to admit, this is sort of the year of the centre, and I haven't looked at Ruben Garrick much at all. I sort of thought there's kind of like fullback, there's just so many good options that I really like. And if you're spending that sort of money, like the Euros, Latrell Mitchell for less and things like that, they just look a lot better. But if he doesn't have that goal kicking, then all of a sudden he's not even in the pack. He sort of falls by the wayside a little bit.
Would have been a decent purchase had he had the goal kicking, but obviously reports that Fogarty's got the goal kicking this year. Actually, as soon as I saw that news, I did the stats, and average, if he didn't goal kick last year, it would have been 56.2. So even less than a 60, and a 56.2 makes him not a very good SuperCoach player. It's a bit better than average, but it's also not what you're paying for. It's less than 100K value. And I think the big thing for me is Daly Cherry Evans really used Olakau'atu and him really well. Always got that face ball off Daly Cherry Evans and went through a lot. So when he was hot because Cherry Evans just knew when to pull the right strings. I don't think Fogarty is that kind of guy. I don't think we'll see it as much with him. I think, Olakau'atu might get early ball from Fogarty. He'd be silly enough not to use that in his arsenal, but I don't see him really utilising Garrick as much as DCE did.
Yeah, and it's really tough because, Garrick has been a staple really in the centre wing keepers stakes for a long time. It's his last year with Manly as well. So I'm sure that he'll want to put in, but there's too many options, and he could be worse. He could even be a 50-point player. And there's been worrying signs in some of these games, and all of us as Ruben Garrick owners have been there where he's been on 20 points with 10 minutes to go or something, and you rejoice when he goes over for a junk time try, or Manly score 3 in the last 10 minutes and they end up with all these goals that puts him up to 40 or something. It gets pretty nerve-wracking. So, yeah, I'm a stay away from him, especially at that price. I do think, if he was a 50 to 56 type player, it is a very good SuperCoach player, but it would be okay. It would be if he was 400K. The problem is he's 664K. So I don't think you can do it. But we mentioned Fogarty as well. He's also coming off a career year where he led the Canberra Raiders, obviously, to the minor premiership. And as a result, he's 667,000. Now, people are doing a lot of funky stuff with their flex position this year and their two halfback spots, particularly because Nathan Cleary is so expensive and people just can't seem to get behind Hines enough as an elite option. He's still highly owned, but he's not like a Cleary type highly owned guy. So there is room for these pods in some of these team builds. But when you look at Fogarty as well, he had 14 points per game in his goal kicking himself. He's like a 54 type of guy if he's not kicking goals. Now, we think that he is kicking goals, but if that did end up handing over the tee to Garrick, then all of a sudden he's hurt immensely. And the other thing too is that his goals at 14 points per game were because the Raiders had the fourth best attack in the NRL. Manly were kind of mid-table, and they look like they could even be worse, potentially, depending on how that pack performs for them. So you look at it and go, wow, he had 30 points per game in his create stats, and he's got all this goal kicking that comes from one of the top few attacking sides in the comp, and he's off a career year. Like, all of it just screams you can't go near him. And even in draft, like, if he drops to after the mid rounds and you need a halfback, I think it's fine. But I actually think that he's going to revert back to the mean type of thing and be sort of a low to mid 50s type of player this year. So he's a definite stay away and classic for me. And even in draft, I think that you need enough value to be able to grab him.
Yeah, I think there was definitely merit in him in the last couple of years at points, especially last year. Like midway through the season, his stats were insane, but he's gone from the best forward pack in the competition to probably the worst. So I think that's enough for me not to be on him.
He's probably not an option that anyone should consider. But look, the next guy is, and I'm keen for you to sell him to everybody because I know that you will. Ola Kawatu is coming back, obviously, from his injury last year, but he's scheduled to be able to be named next week. And 650K isn't a bad price. 72 average if you exclude his last two games where he got hurt and didn't play his minutes. So it's actually 6 points of value right there. Not the type of guy that is going to get the extra tackles, Savs, to really be impacted by the new scoring criteria and stats provider, but he did score his lowest tries since he's been a starter with only 5 tries, although his strike rate was basically the same as 2024. I guess the worry for me with him, I've always, even 3 years ago, when I'm doing these podcasts, and I think that I would have done that one with you, but I said it for a couple of years, it's always been, Olaquatu's great, heavy reliance on tries though, and he really should have better base power because he should be getting more tackle breaks and offloads than what he does. His base power has actually gone down for 3 years straight, only slightly, but still. And when you're looking at a raw base of 40, it's okay. But again, it's sort of that 1 or 2 points that's chipped away the last few years. And his tries have actually disappeared last year. Now, he still ended up scoring really well. I guess we're all just sort of thinking, he could be that 75 to 80 real top echelon type second row forward if he really put the season together. So 60K though, I don't think it's a bad price for him.
Yeah, it's not at all. I think the round 3 buy is like for him, I need all things in place for me to want to buy someone like Olaquatu, and the fact that he's got that round 3 buy, I probably don't want to pull the trigger straight away. We've only seen a small sample size of him without DCE. He's played 1 game in 2 years without DCE, and he scored 42. So there's not really a sample size to go off there. Had a 57 in base and power last year. Scored 10 tries in 2023. 6 tries in 2024 and 5 tries last year. It does feel like he's more of a 10-try type of guy every year. So if you're relying on that, then yeah, there's a bit of value there. But I think he's the type of guy you can probably get in once you make sure that the Fogarty and Olaquatu combination works pretty well. Yeah, I think he will be one of the first kind of second row guns that we all look at getting in eventually.
It has to be said too, he's got 15 and 19 games the last couple of years, and there's been a frustrating mix of injury and also suspension that's happened in there, and he made the New South Wales Origin side as well. So those things mixed in don't bode too well for a mid-season purchase either. But I do really like him, and I think that he's a huge pod play. Like, if you're confident in him and you have him from the start, he's going to be very low ownership, and he very well could bang over a couple of tries in a row, and then all of a sudden you're off to a flyer. And we've seen those runs from Olaquatu before, so he's definitely still going to be an elite option for me. But I'm not personally going to have him round one. Guys, if you want those attacking guys, I think Angus is a bit safer and also cheaper. If you want those workers that are going to sort of score higher, obviously Yo's quite popular. But you also have a lot of in-between guys as well that you could have a look at. Kolomatangi is only 15k more or something. So, I mean, yeah, to not go him, I think is crazy for round one. Pod time. A lot of the listeners' favourite time is the pod time. Before we talk about our pod zone, we've got two pretty interesting ones to talk about. I'm just going to quickly mention the great sponsor of the NRL Allstars podcast in One World Courier. You can go to oneworldcourier.com.au today, sign up for a free account, and when you sign up, it'll say, where did you hear about us? Make sure you put NRL All-Stars podcast, because that way they'll know that you came from here, and they'll give you a good rate card to start off and trial with them. But basically, if you work for a business or you own a business that has any freight shipping needs at all, doesn't matter how big or small they are, One World Courier are your people to talk to. When you go to the website, basically put in what you want to send, where you want to send it to, and then it'll spit out all the different providers that you can ship with, and you just pick what one you want. And that's it. It's all done. They'll take care of it all for you from point A to point B. So onemorecourier.com.au. Go get on them today. Great supporters of the NRL All-Stars podcast for 3 years running now. Pod of the team preview is going to be Cooler for me. 643,200. He's an expensive centre wing. But, you know, we always have these years of the mid-ranger, years of this, years of that. Years of mid-ranger happens a lot. But Cooler, year of the centre wing Savs. 17 tries in 22 games is pretty crazy though. And I think that one of the things with him is, like, I was kind of surprised on two things, and this happens in the off season, right? Like, I forget some stats and things, or how players actually went, and it's like you get these ideas in your head. And with Cooler, to me, when I think about him, I'm like, oh, I think he's got pretty low base power from memory, but he's actually, like, he's a real try scorer, that type of guy. 42 base power is actually pretty solid for him. It was better than I thought it was. And he wasn't really a try scorer on the numbers, because 22 last season, but the seasons before he scored 7, 8 and 6 tries in very similar amount of games played. So I think that we see the speed and everything and just think that he's gone over the line all the time. And watching last season, we've got that recency bias. But man, like, he's got a real potential to keep getting better and score those 22 tries and be one of these 65 to 70 type of centre wings. But he's also got just as much potential to revert to the mean after that career try scoring year and score like 7, and that'll just kill you. So, you know, a really interesting point. I love his potential.
He's just re-signed with Manly too, so obviously it means he's happy enough at the club, which is always a good sign, I guess. He's owned by 2011 people, and 2011 Manly won the comp. So I think that's the
stats that matter.
That is the stat that matters. I love Cooler as a player. It just feels like he's been a bit left for dead out in that left centre, but I guess with DCE gone and just their lack of strike power, it's obviously going to be Tommy ball, but he might have to get more involved than he has in years past. He might have to roam a bit, maybe plays that second 5'8" potentially, like on the right side. So maybe we see he roams a little bit. I'd love to see that. And maybe that was the preface of him re-signing, just saying, hey, you're not going to play centre the whole time. You're going to play more of a hybrid type role. And I think this roaming centre is going to be more common in the NRL these days. We've seen Stephen Crichton. He's moving to the left side, and I think that's to accommodate his roaming nature, whereas Bronson Xerri was more of just plugging a hole in at the left centre. We've seen Val Holmes look like he's moving to the right side. I think that's so he can roam and add something to the St. George Illawarra attack. So, yeah, I'm hopeful that Cooler does roam this year. Yeah, like considering last year he didn't feel like an option all year, but like a 66 average, crazy.
Yeah, it is. And when you have a look at it on the run home, he averaged 69 points a game in the final third of the season. Scored a try in every one of those games bar one, and actually had like the ridiculous strike rate on the second half of the season. He only had two games where he didn't score a try in. And he did show ceiling too. 131 point high. That was against Melbourne though, and this is the thing. Like it's a bit hard to pick with him, because there was games where I thought that he would absolutely kill it, like the Gold Coast Titans game, and that was 49 points mid-season, and it was in the middle of the big bye rounds as well. And then obviously he does that to Melbourne with 131 with a double that he scored. It's a little bit tough. He actually scored 78 against Melbourne, the other game that he played against them. and 92 versus Canberra, one of those two games. So it's hard to pick with him. And I don't like players like that. Like I like players that are like, there's weak defence there, I'm going to score tries, because it's so much easier for Supercoach. But he did get the 2 tons for the year, had 4 90-plus performances. And I do think that he did go in and look for the ball a bit more. Like, I'm pretty sure it was that Melbourne game where he had like a amazing solo effort where I think that he just took a run off the ruck type of thing and just went through 4 defenders and scored a try.
And
He started to do that type of thing.
Tommy got the try assist as well for that one.
Yeah, well, he might not this year.
Well, he was the last pass for that one, but...
Oh, was he? Okay,
yeah,
well, maybe he will.
Cooler did all the work, like, by far. Yeah, I actually don't think he was awarded it on the NRL app, but yeah, bit concerning that he played, got 19 in his first game last year, then got 38, then got 67. Seems like he did warm into the season a little bit, but once he hit that 131, you'd be pretty happy with all the scores following, pretty much.
Well, he actually went 60 plus 64% of the time, which is really quite good. But the problem is that we talk about the positive stats like that, and it's all based on him scoring a lot of tries. Like, look, he managed to do that when Manly's attack was middle of the road. I don't think that there'll be a lot worse. So it's going to be interesting where his tries fall, because that's basically where his Supercoach value is going to fall as well. But like Savs said, like, you're talking about 1 to 2% ownership. It's uber pod time. The other guy is as well, and I owned him for some really good games. Lehigh Hopoate, 611,000. Had some great times to own him, but obviously 611,000, a little expensive. 63 points per game. Some of that was at fullback. Certainly the fullback games were great. Had a 107-point fullback game in there. But in saying that, he also had a 2-point game. Played him for that, 6 minutes, went off, done for the game. If you take that out, his average is actually much higher and more towards the higher 60s type of thing. So unlike Cooler, Lehigh didn't score a heap of tries. He, in fact, only scored in 5 games last season. 3 of those 5 games were doubles, though, where he went 100, 160 and 84. So when you're talking about, wanting a guy that when he scores a double to go bang, Lehigh is the guy that does that. I really liked the ceiling that he had. He ended up with 3 tons all up. And when you're having a look at the matchups, that 160 came against the Dolphins in a massive high-scoring game. He's obviously got them early on in the season. And the Newcastle game he actually got injured for, so we got nothing on that. But against the Raiders, 35 points, which is kind of what you'd expect at GIO Stadium for him. So obviously massive pod territory, less than Cooler ownership, but also closer to the 600K mark. I think it's way too hard with their draw to bother with Lehigh myself. But I do think there's going to be a point, particularly like even after the first month, where Lehigh could cop a lot of ball and get a couple of doubles. And then, as we know, that's sort of 100-plus territory for him straight away. So I really liked owning him at points last year, aside from the fact that he got hurt for that, 2-point game.
Well, unlike Cooler, you can actually pick the games where he's going to score well here.
Yeah.
I think I got him after that Cowboys game where he scored 89. Maybe I even got him the game before that, but he got 89, 100, 107. Then everyone jumped on for the Newcastle game and he got 2. I held on to him after that, and that 160 in round 25 was really handy. So he was a good own, but I guess for me, he was someone I was never super excited about having in my team play every week. Like, yeah, he scored well some weeks, but it just felt like it was more circumstantial. It didn't feel like he was like someone they were seeking out a lot of the time in attack. It just felt like, yeah, it was Tommy ball and, yeah, like a lot of cutout passes to him and stuff. And I guess this is where probably Cooler becomes a little bit more interesting, because if Lehigh's going to score a few tries, then you'd think that Cooler probably might be that last pass more times often than not. Although Tommy, when he does sweep, he loves to throw the cutout, but there will be times where Cooler does get that try assist. But I think for me, just at the price, like you can get Latrell for a similar price. You can get like 100K more. You can get Eero, Valentine Holmes. There's just so many options at the price, and I'd probably prefer even to go down. Like, I really love Tane Tuapiki if he starts a fullback. I love I don't mind Selwyn Cobo. So there's just a lot of guys that I think there's more value. There's a lot of guys who I think are going to score more points. He's just like, if we had a squad of 10 center wings, then you'd obviously probably consider him more. But, yeah, just for me, I'm probably not considering him this early on.
Yeah, I'll throw another one out there too. Like, if you want a pod, you can find pods that are probably going to be more beneficial to start the season with. A couple of years ago, I started the Murray Taulagi fan club, and at the moment we're about 3 members in. But in saying that,
I'll tell you what, I do not mind Murray Taulagi.
Well, at the start of the season for them, like Gold Coast Titans, Newcastle Knights, and West Tigers, it's a good 3-game stretch straight away for him, and he doesn't have that bias. You know, you're talking about 30k difference as well, something like that. If you can find those Uber pods if you really want that, and probably get a better one than Hopperwadi. I do think that, you know, the key with Hopper is if Turbo does go down, fingers crossed he doesn't for the Manly fans, then Hopper obviously goes to fullback and he can gain a little bit more value. But I keep going back to it though, as much as I say, look, you know, I don't think that he fits in anywhere. Only 9 and 8 tries the last 2 years, and I just look at it and go, if he's on the wing still, he's got to get more than that. I just feel like that he's got to get an extra few tries, and he's got the ability to finish a bit. So, like, there is potential there where he could get to a 70-plus season. But let's talk about the fallen gun and then the mids and cheapies to finish off on the show today. The fallen gun has been a fallen gun, I feel like, for half my lifetime. Jake Trbojevic, the great man, obviously was a gun of the past, and he was a big mistake for a lot of years, but he's now, and people will say, you're crazy for even talking about him, Barnesy. Look, we like to unpack everything on these podcasts, all right? I mean, it's a team preview. You can't not talk about Jake Trbojevic if you're going to talk about Manly, okay? The heart and soul of the team. But it's all about price, guys. So all of a sudden, he is extremely cheap. 300k. Now, he's still not going to give you good scores, but if you take out the 2 injury-affected games, he's automatically got 5 points more. And if you have a look what he's priced on, it's a 37. And we talked about how much they need middles because they just don't really have any of high quality. Like, if he plays 80 minutes a game, which is a big if, I don't think that he will. But if he did, like, you're talking about a 50-plus type of guy, which isn't great, but it's still like 13 points better than what he's priced at. Obviously, if he plays 60 to 65, it's going to be a bit less. But there is a world where you can get 10 points of value. I think that we should talk about the first mid when we're doing this conversation, though, and that's Paseka. And that's probably his biggest argument against him. You know, Paseka's 30k less, and he had a 57 average, but he played 55 and 54 minutes the first 2 games last year. For us, you know, and was an easy sort of 60 average for those games. So obviously Paseka, if he can do what he did in that small sample size, you go, well, you're going to take him for less. And those are the 2 guys, I think, and they're both fitting a real need because everybody wants some cheap front row forwards there. You don't want to spend too much on all those positions. So, you know, is there any chance of a Gerbo resurgence to actually make some money at 3? Could you even have Gerbo and Paseka if you're going really light in that 2 of those front row forward spots?
I mean, I love Paseka at 320k. Obviously, the injury last year was very bad for him. I'm just getting up Jake Trebojevic's stats because something like nobody's talked about him at all. He had 561 points in tackles last year via the Fox Sports app. I'm trying to find 2025 attack, passing, defense. Oh, only 598. So he only gained 37 points. So I thought there'd be a lot more there. But
you'll probably get about 3 points a game.
Yeah. So
particularly when you consider his 2 injury-affected games, like you could maybe even stretch it to 4.
There was actually 3. So he had an 8, a 15, and the game where he got his last concussion, he scored 27 against Canberra in round 23.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I counted for those 3 games.
Yeah,
I did.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, he'll do a job. He'll do a job maybe, but I think there's enough cheapies in that position that you probably don't need to go there. And for cheaper, like a Joe Chan, a Lasardi, a Paxton, a Cooper Bai even, I think is probably a better option. But man, I miss the Gerbo days at front row when him and Tommy would. He was
inside out plays.
Yeah, he was a genuine attacking gun. It's just gone out of nowhere. Like we haven't seen it for years, have we?
No, he's got to keep it simple with the meat and potatoes now. He doesn't like to vary the meal too much. Meat, potatoes, maybe some veg every now and then where he gets his 3 tackle breaks a year. That's it. And he literally is. Like, he had nothing last year. Like, his base power stats were like almost single figures for the whole year.
Yeah.
His power stats, sorry, not the base.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think he could. I think he could end up with a 50 average, but obviously it takes a lot to get there for him, and that's going to be your slow burn to 100k. He's also, wearing the new headgear that he's loving, but I still think that he's just as much of a concussion risk, and if he has those concussions, he could go for months. So Paseka is the winner out of those two, but Paseka also could be the winner of all those mid-ranges. I've got Colquhoun instead at the moment because I like the certainty. He's a young guy as well, and he's going to have pretty guaranteed minutes type of thing, at least until McInnes is back. But Paseka, like, where do you see him? Because he obviously started last year with good minutes, like a 55 type of starting prop. He's got a heavy discount because he only made it through 3 games or 2.5. But he's also coming off a really bad injury, and he's a big fella, so maybe they ease him in and he's a 45-minute prop to start with, and then that's not quite as good to start the season.
Well, the reason I loved him is because he averaged 57.5 in 2024 before he got injured in round 21. And then the year before that, he averaged, he didn't average that much, but he averaged 44 last year, the year before last as well. And I feel like he can be a 55 guy at his best. But I mean, looking deeper into it, he's not that attractive. But you're just looking at him, he's got to take the big step this year. He's got to be the alpha of the packs. He's like they need him to perform this year, and I think he'll know that he needed to have a big year this year. It is worrying though. I think we could potentially make 90k off him, and he go to 410, and that's all we can make off him potentially. But there's a well where he can get to 450, 500k as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably higher on him than you are, even, because they've priced him like really low. So I think because they've given him the price benefit, it's made it hugely appealing. Because I think that his range is 50 to 60. Like, in a perfect world, if he gets 55 minutes a game, odd, and then maintains one of his higher PPMs, which is always quite high, he could even get to 60 points a game. I think a lot of, especially new players, will have a look at it and go, oh, well, he's priced at, so you're looking at 50 to 60 Barnesy, but he's coming off a 48, average last season. But you can't look at that 48 average because it's been thrown out the window by the pricing. Like, he should be closer to 500k, but he's not. So at 320 something thousand, he's actually got potentially 200k to make if he can get in that range. I'm just not sure what they're going to do because of his injury. Because it's a pretty serious injury for a big fella. So I really like him. I think that he's one of the best front row forward options that you can get in that sort of cheapy to 350k type of area.
Yeah, well, round 1 last year, he scored 71 in 54 minutes, and then he scored 52 in 55 minutes in round 2. So, there's like he's probably going to get 55 minutes at least by the look of what they were planning on doing with him last year. So yeah, we can get his PPM. He's probably roughly a 50 to 55 type guy, and that's with the upside as well. So he had a try assist in that first game for 71. So he'll score some tries. He's a big boy. So yeah, he's good. He's now like just looking at it, I think there were parts of me that thought, oh, maybe he might underwhelm. But looking at his stats from last year, he's probably nearly a playable option for round 1 now, in my eyes.
Well, yeah, especially when you look at the pack, like, they need him. Like, which front rowers are going to play alpha minutes? And the answer is probably none of them. So that's an issue. So that might be the thing that negates the fact that he's coming from a long layoff. They kind of need him to play big minutes. Jake Simpkin is the last guy, and he's the last hooker standing because, unfortunately, Croker has had to retire, which is very unfortunate. But Simpkin comes in at 422,700, one of those mid-range hooker options, right around a Reed Marnie type of area. And there's a lot of people that are reeling from the Brandon Smith news because they're not sure where to go. They might already have money, not want to spend. Simpkin could be an option. He's priced at a 43-point average, and he's only 56 minutes a game. Now, depending on how the bench is made up, if he's an 80-minute hooker, he's got great upside. The last 5 games of last season, he played 80 minutes in all of them and he averaged 62 points. So you might have as much as almost 20 points of upside if he can replicate that in his 80 minutes. I guess the big question is they've brought Docker Clay in for very obvious reasons. They don't have any real backup that's ready yet for the NRL. Does Seabold opt to have Docker Clay, off the bench and playing some of those minutes? Because if he ends up playing 20 minutes a game and Docker Clay is very capable, then you might only have 4 or 5 points of value in Simpkin and it's going to be pretty tough. But if Docker Clay is playing 15 minutes, 10 minutes, a little bit better, but maybe at the price point still not worth it. So for me, his value all rests on that 80-minute role or not.
It kind of sucks because we're not going to know until we actually see the full game play out, especially with this 6-person bench. Sonny Luke was named a 14 for the Cowboys this week. I don't know what that means at all, whether they're planning, is that best case scenario? Is that the bench they're going to use if nothing happens? Or is that just like, I don't know what that means at all. So I'm keen to see how it plays out this weekend so I can reassess this week. Although coach to coach, it could be completely different. Jake Simpkin, 422,000. He averaged 43 in 2025, but in 80-minute games, he averaged 62. Will he get 80 minutes? I think the Zach Docker, I have a feeling Zach Docker Clay is going to take at least 15 minutes. I guess for me, 62 is, if it was a 70 or a 75 average in 80-minute games, I'd be all for it. But I think it's just too much risk not knowing what the role is. I think he's the perfect example of utilizing the buy in round 3 to be able to have a look at him and see how he's going. If he's killing it, then you can change one of your hookers to go to him to accommodate for that. And you've got that extra week. Whereas, some players, you probably want to take a flyer on it beforehand. I'm thinking of just locking Harry Grant, to be honest, because these hooker rotations are a nightmare in my opinion, especially with this.
I think that he's become more of an option than what he was. So I certainly am seeing people starting to flock to Harry a little bit. The other one too, that if you're looking at Brandon Smith and you're trying to find money to go up to a Simpkin, I against what seems to be popular opinion by a lot of people, I actually like Aielu at the Roosters. There's Robson is projected to be back round 7. There was whispers it could be back earlier, but I mean he's in a pretty big cast at the moment. I'm not sure about that. Look, he's a young, talented hooker, Aielu, and I just think that's at least 4 price rises, if not 5, out of him before he's gone, and that's enough. You could do that. Get to 450 from his 240k or 250k, whatever he's at, and get another genuine second hooker option from there and make some quick money out of it. So I don't mind that either as a different one to Simpkin, but that is the Manly Seagulls for this year. A little bit more downtrodden than maybe prior years, but I still think that there was some good stuff in there, Savs. So thanks very much for jumping on board from the SC experience and coming on to Allstars once again. And for everyone listening, make sure that you do subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. And if you're watching, you need to subscribe on YouTube as well. Follow us on X, Facebook, and also Instagram. Have fun watching all the Vegas games this weekend as well. It is fantastic when you get to kickoff time and for SuperCoach kickoff time too. I'll be back again with another team preview in the next day or two. Until then, can't wait to talk more footy with everyone real soon.
You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get